Hi everyone, Ashley, Gina, Swapnil.
Hello.
How are you all doing today?
I'm good.
Hi Brandon.
Good, thanks. How are you?
Good. We made a transition from Zoom to Google Meet, and it's been a little bit rough, but you guys made it. I popped this into the Slack channel, random Slack channel in the NSA Slack community. So I don't. Hopefully, folks are able to get in through that. All right. Anyway, my name is Eric. I run a recruiting firm here in Heber, Park City, Utah, and been part of the NSA now for almost, gosh, 2 years. I moderated two groups, two job search councils, and get a lot of inquiries about, hey, can I grab a coffee? So that's what sort of prompted this to do it sort of in a group fashion. And so I don't really have much structure other than sort of ask me anything, and I'm happy to kind of give you my perspective. And then we can kind of just go from there. So I'll leave it to you guys. Brandon, I think you're on mute. I see your mouth moving, but I can't hear any words.
Yeah, there we go.
There you go.
So I came across this through the Slack channel. That was literally probably just about 15 minutes ago. So I'm just kind of getting started with the JSC process, but maybe maybe you could give some highlights as far as what your thoughts are, sort of from recruiting perspective, and how you've seen the JSC process be helpful.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I think the landscape is moving really quickly in terms of how one navigates the job search process, what to expect. You know, really the exercise is a marketing exercise, a marketing networking exercise. There's also a piece that I appreciate about the JSC, which is sort of the introspective part, you know, taking inventory of who you are, where you've been, what you have, and sort of doing that as sort of foundation to in advance of doing any sort of outbound marketing. So I really appreciate that. I don't think people do enough of that, but I think the landscape is shifting. I think especially, you know, on the white collar sort of knowledge worker side, it feels like, you know, AI could potentially be a big threat. I think we're already seeing a lot of companies, you know, if they're not downsizing their staff, they're at least slowing down their hiring because they don't want to overhire, right? With the thought that AI will be able to help their existing team increase their capacity and their capabilities. So those are some of the observations that I've seen. Yeah, and I think a lot of folks struggle with sort of the narrow mindset of finding a W-2 position. I don't know what the future of W-2 positions are. I think maybe there's opportunity to diversify. And, you know, as you build this marketing effort, this marketing motion, maybe not so much just focused on W-2 work, right? If there's opportunity to, you know, position your experience, your skills, your domain expertise in ways that the market can benefit outside of a W-2, you know, that you know, you start to develop a portfolio of revenue streams, right? And if any of those revenue streams go away, you still have a portfolio, right? Whereas the W-2, typically people have one W-2, and that's a 40-hour position. Usually, and usually people only have one of those, right? And so when that's jeopardized, you don't have anything in your back pocket, and then usually at that time you have to respin up sort of the whole NSA Job Search Council kind of motion, right? So maybe those are some of my observations. You know, there's I think proliferation of folks kind of moving into like fractional work, right? So that could be something to consider. But yeah, I don't know if there's a silver bullet. Those are just some of the observations that I've seen evolve over the past year or two, and hopefully that helps.
Yeah, thank you.
I think
you just mentioned.
Oh, go ahead, Brandon. Go ahead.
So you just mentioned the idea of fractional work, so that oftentimes, at least as far as what I've kind of seen so far, lends itself towards things like fractional CTO or maybe CPO, like Chief Product Officer type roles. Have you seen other things as well, or is that kind of what you're sort of referring to with that?
Just to give you some background, you know, most of my experience over the past 10, 12 years has been working with primarily venture-backed early stage tech-enabled companies. And what I've seen is that typically a lot of those companies, they start with hiring fractional like CFOs, right? Because you don't, especially early on, you don't need a full-time CFO. As far as sort of the next sequence, I've seen chief marketing officers as far as fractional CTO, which usually turns into a full-time CTO hire. A lot of these folks use fractional work, you know, as ways to kind of try before you buy. I've seen that on the company, on the employer side, as well as the talent side. So yeah, I'd say CFO, CMO, CTO. That's typically what I see earlier on. Now, if you're not at that level, I think there's other ways that you can. I think part of it is just like figuring out what you're good at and creating a sort of a persona around that that's consistent across your LinkedIn profile. Whatever digital footprint you might have. One of the other trends, I think I mentioned this before. One of the other trends that I'm seeing is that a lot of these companies are increasingly biasing towards generalists. Whereas, I don't know, for the past 20 years, companies were really excited about specialists that have deep domain expertise in a niche area. At least with the companies that I've been working with, and just the trends that I've been seeing, is companies are becoming more inclined to hiring generalists, folks that can do more outside of their sort of bookended title. Right? So, for example, if you're a product manager, whereas before people wanted deep experience as product managers. Maybe product manager is not the best example, but because a lot of product managers do a lot of things anyway. But for example, if a product manager can expand their scope into providing value in QA, or maybe more on the strategic side, or maybe even the design side, right? If a product manager can expand sort of where they can add value in terms of their scope or value chain, I'm seeing companies being excited about that. Again, the companies that I primarily work with are earlier stage, so sub 100, maybe a Series A companies.
Thank you.
One thing I was going to say, because this is just something that I don't know how many of you guys are. I mean, I think most companies, a lot of companies now, especially early stages, are doing, or early stages in the interview process, are doing remote interviews, right, through Zoom or Google Meet or whatever. If I were you, you should be recording those, right? It's easy to record it. Most people don't think twice about, oh, hey, are you recording this? And really use GPT to analyze for the transcript, the transcription of the conversation, of the interview. I think there's a lot of things you can mine out of that. And it's really cost effective now to mine insights about how you're interviewing, maybe where you might have fallen short. And I'm not even talking about like delivery, like your tone or whatnot. I'm just talking like straight answers and straight text. Like there's a lot that you can glean out of that. I do that myself as an interviewer for candidate interviews, sales calls. I'll take it and I'll take those transcriptions and I'll use GPT to analyze them, right, and to draw insights around what I could have done better, what I'm doing well, and then also analyze sort of the maybe the persona, the psychology of the other person, right? There's a lot you can do now, and it's cost effective, and the norm is moving such that people don't question, are you recording this? And a lot of times it's set up automatically anyway, so it's really convenient.
Yeah, that's a really good idea.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I'll come off of an interview and it's hard to remember kind of the totality of the conversation, right?
Yeah.
And how I actually answered certain things. So
yeah,
definitely be good to have that available.
I use Granola. It's pretty convenient to use. Google Meet, you can set it up to automatically record and transcribe any and all Google Meet conversations unless you decide to opt out of it. But Granola is nice because you can take notes. A lot of people like to take notes themselves, but they don't want to take exhaustive notes. And then the transcription is used automatically as part of the Granola sort of workflow to augment the manual notes that were taken. And then you could toggle between what notes were manually generated by you and what notes were sort of augmented by processing the transcription. That's what's neat about. Hi, Jamie. Good to see you.
How you doing?
Good.
I have a question since this is about Never Search Alone curriculum.
Yeah.
I'm about to start my listening tour and I'm thinking of who to ask for advice. And some recruiters I've worked with. So I've kind of bounced around in my career from finance, FP&A, product strategy, consulting, project program management, strategy and operations, my most recent role. Is it better to do maybe like a recruiter that specializes in each of them? Or if you reach out to a recruiter, would they only know like what their company is looking for or their specific niche even within that? Or how would you decide who to talk to?
First of all, it's hard to get time with recruiters, right? Unless you're a candidate or a talent that that's relevant to some of the searches that they're actively working on, right? It's hard to get time with recruiters unless you fall into one of those buckets that they're actively looking to talk to. So don't take it out on them. A lot of recruiters are pretty busy. Increasingly, recruiters are being asked to do more with less. So don't take it personal if they're not responding to you or you feel like they're ghosting you. One thing I would recommend, is learning how to use, Perplexity or ChatGPT, and having, prompt it such that it takes on sort of an advisory position to you. Like they could be like a recruiter that specializes in blah, 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 right? Don't underestimate it. It can provide a lot of insight, right? I do that myself. I mean, even as a recruiter that has a lot of experience, I'll ask it to play the role of an expert recruiter. And a lot of what it tells me, I kind of already know, but there's always a small piece that's like, oh, I didn't think of it that way.
Yeah, I've used ChatGPT a lot.
But as far as like the process, I mean, with respect to the listening tour, I mean, you're just trying to validate, right? Once you do that sort of introspection and inventory of where that fits into the marketplace, right? And I don't know if there's a silver
cue to the market.
What's that?
Who has a good cue to the market if everyone is so specialized?
No, I would say recruiters do. They have a good sense of the market, right? Particularly, so for example, my sense of the market is again based in early stage venture-backed tech startups, primarily in software engineering, product management, and sales and marketing. But to answer your question, you have to size up the recruiter. There's internal recruiters that work for a particular company, Google, what have you, and then there's third-party recruiters like myself that run, they run a portfolio of companies that they help to hire for. So you have to figure out like which recruiter would be most relevant to you. Recruiters are usually specialized in terms of region or domain or industry, as well as seniority, right? You might have folks that are earlier in their recruiting career, maybe working with more entry or mid-level kinds of roles. You might have folks that are executive recruiters that have been in the industry for 15, 20, whatever years, and they're doing higher level searches, director, VP, C-level positions. So you have to kind of size up your recruiter that you're trying to align with. If you're interested in product management positions, program management, project management kinds of positions, I would say that's something. There are recruiters that specialize in those particular, like I only do product managers or I only do designers, but I would think that's maybe a little bit fewer and far between. Like it's usually specialized by region. It's specialized by, usually like types of companies, like size of companies that they work for. And then you could start looking at, function or industry experience. So functions being like, finance or engineering, software or whatever. But even then, a lot of third-party recruiters, they will do multiple kinds of functions, right? So I hope that helps. I guess, what are some of the challenges that you're facing in connecting with recruiters right now? They're just not returning your calls?
I didn't reach out yet. I'm just wondering who would be best to talk to or who to ask first. Yeah, I mean, I would start with region. I would start with the size of the company that you might be interested in. If you're doing it just to validate, and that's what I would go into. I would go into it with the spirit of validating your like your manukin, right? I wouldn't go into it in the spirit of like, oh, I'm trying to network with this recruiter per se, right? Because well, I already know some, but like for example, one specializes in finance roles. I've done like finance project management recently, but my true FP&A role was almost 10 years ago. So I don't know if it would make the most sense to talk to her.
I mean, if you were to have a relationship with that person, it might be easy to get on the phone with them and they can give you some perspective. If you don't have a relationship, then you probably want to be a little bit more focused around who you're reaching out to. Otherwise, you might just spin your wheels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. I'll go again if nobody else has.
Please, we have some time.
Good job. I feel like I'm prepared now. I have my manukin, but I just don't see any listings. I check all the websites. I've reached out to my network. People know I'm looking for my next role. They're happy to help, but unfortunately don't know of anything. Their companies aren't hiring. I have talked to a few people who say their companies are interested in what I can offer, but they're trying to do it with people they have already. They're not adding headcount. So any advice? Yeah, it's a bit of a long haul, right? You have to be consistent and figure out a motion that's sustainable as far as marketing networking, sourcing marketing networking. I think you being as part of the job search, the NSA and the Job Search Council, I think is something that's helpful because I think a large part of it is knowledge sharing. It's also just maintaining your morale, right? Because it's going to be sort of an up and down journey, but also cross-pollination in terms of ideas, right? I think the Slack channels
I mean, the whole Slack community for the NSA is a good way to cross-pollinate ideas. But I think part of it is just being discerning about certain ideas, because there's always the sort of the danger or pitfall of chasing all kinds of shiny objects and not implementing them with a long enough time horizon to realize whether it's working or not. I think that's one of the challenges, right? So yeah, that's one of the challenges. I mean, as far as where all the jobs are, there's always that, I think you guys have seen that diagram with the iceberg or whatnot, right? The posted jobs are just sort of the tip of the iceberg and this and that. As far as, when a company, at least what I've seen, when a company is looking to make headcount, there's leading indicators of that, right? Again, in my space, a leading indicator of opening up headcount has to do with getting traction in the market, which is a leading indicator usually of additional funding. Additional funding is a leading indicator of expanding the team. Expanding the team is a leading indicator of hiring, right? So if you sort of follow that, you can look for leading indicators that a company may be opening up headcount, right? I haven't cracked the nut because I'm not doing it right now, but as far as setting up any automations that are scraping like news of leading indicators, and that's kind of getting out ahead of it, right? Most people are starting where the job is already existing and the job is posted, but if you can try to reverse engineer some of the leading indicators, that could kind of guide some of your motion, your efforts upstream of the jobs being posted. Because by the time jobs posted, everybody and their mom already knows about it.
Yeah.
And the folks that are privy, that are in the company, I can almost guarantee you, right, before a job is posted, the hiring manager, they're already been doing their search. They're tapping their network. Like, who do I know? Like, who do I remember working with that was great that I want to pull from wherever they are? They've already done that, right? So if you can get out ahead of that, and again, I don't have a silver bullet for doing that, but if you think in those terms of leading indicators, you may be able to set up an automation that kind of helps you to mine that, which could be a fun exercise, right? Like, I think part of it is when you go into these interviews now, at least from what I'm seeing, there's an expectation, or at least a subconscious expectation that you can showcase what you're doing with AI. And if you do that, I think you'll set yourself apart from other candidates, because now you're somebody that is, in the eyes of the hiring manager, you're not just bringing your experience as far as your particular craft, but now you're also bringing in this additional layer of, I've been thinking about how AI can increase my capabilities and my capacities within this craft, right? And there's different levels of proficiency with AI, right? So I would suggest, like, being able to speak to those different levels, right? There's the level of, just being familiar with some of the tools like ChatGPT and how to use it with respect to like prompting, things like that. A next level is, just understanding like what some of its limitations are, how it might integrate into automation, into existing manual workflow. When those workflows need to surface up to human judgment or human decision. Testing, how can you build a testing framework to validate that the automation is converging on something that's real and not, hallucin. So being able to speak to that is sort of different levels of understanding of AI. It's not just AI, but it's also how does it integrate into the process, into the workflow around your craft, your domain, your functional expertise. If you can speak to projects that you've done, it could just be side stuff that you've done for your own sake. You could start to use the job search motion, the marketing, as an opportunity to kind of automate some of those things and use that as a way to showcase, your AI experience. And then you could start to look at how you might even use that in your own, again, if you're a designer, if you're a product manager. I mean, one of the obvious things is software development, right? Like everyone's using Claude Code or Cursor now, and it's really changing what people are capable of producing. The capacity, like how fast they could put something out and how fast they can make changes to that. It's like by a factor of 10. It's crazy. It's really crazy. Probably more than 10. But
I think it might be on Eric's side.
am I frozen?
Oh, you're going in and out.
No?
Not too well.
You guys hear me
Better
now?
now. Yes, it's better.
Okay. I just killed my video. Happy to answer any questions. I do this once a week, and let me know how I can help. I'm happy to provide my perspective. My perspective is not end all be all, but
I really like what you said about kind of the idea of looking at leading indicators and trying to get out ahead of it. Because yeah, once the job's posted, especially when they're all remote positions, your competition is the entire world.
Yeah, the other thing too is if you're able to take advantage of leading indicators, like you already got an advance, like first mover advantage, right? Because even if it does end up, even if nothing materializes in advance of it getting posted, you've had an opportunity to kind of connect and network with folks before that wave of applicants comes in. And I'm not saying that's easy, right? Like the leading indicator is not entirely easy. Like you have to do some mining. But again, one thing I had a thought, right? Like so you guys probably get inundated with this stuff too, but I get inundated with lead gen email, LinkedIn requests saying, "Hey, we could do lead gen for you," and this and that. I don't know if you guys get those, but it could be interesting to kind of see what they're doing as far as lead gen. Because a lot of those same motions are probably relevant to the job search motion.
I have a quick question, Eric, if you have like another minute or so.
Yeah.
Do you regularly check in with other recruiters? I'm not sure if I've asked you that in the past or recently, but just kind of like what else is out there, any other updates if you do, in fact, talk with other recruiters?
That's a good question. It's few and far between. I have recruiters that are friends on a personal level, and I'll chat with them every now and then. Hey, what are you seeing out there? But it's not something I do on a daily or weekly basis.
So quick question on kind of the follow-up too of what you kind of talked about with the leading indicators. So if you were to go ahead and reach out, let's say you found, had a couple different ideas with a few different companies, then would you reach out to them similar to kind of like the lead gen that you're talking about, or do you have other suggestions on how you might reach out to maybe corporate recruiters, as an example?
Yeah. So if you have some indication or some signal that a company or a hiring manager or department is going to be expanding and hiring, I wouldn't start with the recruiter. I would try to build a relationship with who you believe to be the hiring manager, right? And you can kind of do a little bit of homework and poking around on LinkedIn to try to get a sense of who that might be. And you can try to engage with them, connect with some of their content. When I mean connect with their content, you can like their content, you can like their comments, you can engage with their comments. And then pretty soon they'll be seeing your name, Brandon Lee, and and then when you reach out to them, either through a LinkedIn connection request or what have you, your name is not, entirely new, right? There's some familiarity there. So yeah, that's what I would recommend. Obviously, if you have a mutual connection, and that mutual connection knows that person you're trying to reach out to, like in a more familiar way, you can try to leverage that channel, that direction. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
All right. I think that's all I got today, guys. Spread the word. I'll be doing this. Again, we're making transition here between Google or Zoom to Google Meet. My assistant's working on sort of the automated email sequence when people register to make sure that's all fixed up. But I think it's taking a little bit of time. But anyway, I'll post it on the Never Search Alone random channel. I'll try to in the day leading up to the Thursday. But feel free to invite anyone if you feel this is might be helpful for them. And bring your questions. I'm happy to help.
Thanks, Eric.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you.
Great.
Guys.
Thank you very much, Eric.
Have a great week. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.